if it's just Erin and I, we're going to have a great time.
Okay, awesome.
All right. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Jenny Mojes, and I am a graphic design instructor, but I also teach web design, information architecture. And so, I live in the Central Florida area here, and I really want to be able to show you, and since this is going to be super interactive, I want to be able to show you my my Valencia graphics course, actually, and maybe kind of talk through some solutions as far as from a web graphic design standpoint. So from a print standpoint for graphic design, and also interactive, because in the program that I teach, we also teach that program at the high school. And so we're able to kind of bridge the gap between the print world and the web world, because in today's industry, especially as educators, we want to kind of know, and keep our ear as to what is happening in the industry, right? And to be able to teach to that, so that the student outcome could be a little bit more successful. And so being able to tap into that area of really knowing what employers kind of want, and to be able to tailor the student learners to that particular area. So one of the things that I've learned over the years, because I myself, I'm not a web designer per se, but I am a print designer. But I do know how to design for web and how to translate things into web. I'm not, my brain probably doesn't work with the whole coding side of things. But I have peers, and it's also another way for me to network with my peers who are web designers, right? But being able to teach it from that perspective is also very different. So one of the things that I want to touch on first, before I kind of dive into my course here at Valencia, which is really information architecture. It's the back end of what we do as a web designer. So, basically teaching how to build the structure of the website, right? Versus diving straight into coding and the design aspect and putting it out there. Because a lot of times what ends up happening is that there's a lot of materials that get put out there, and everybody sometimes wants to call themselves a web designer or a graphic designer, and we want to be able to teach the students how to really critically think of building the structure before we dive into the coding side and the design side of things, and then they'd be able to test it. So basically here, like the topics that I would initially, and whether you're teaching at a high level, higher education field, or if I have some of you here who are in the high school realm, because I am in both, we want to be able to chunk the information to the students. So like some of my topics here in the first page or the introduction page would be like logical thinking processes used for planning all types of interactive projects, content strategy. How do we strategize and really organize the information in a way that the end user can, you go to this particular website, how is it actually being seen from the user's end? Research, planning, and organization, and the development of the website. User interaction design and user interaction experience fundamentals. The user experience itself, how do we problem solve that information? And then the wireframing, what's going where are we putting things? That basically, if I were to say, if I'm teaching graphic design, I would say this is my grid, right? But the wireframe is the website of things. And then site mapping, basically kind of mapping things out on a website. So this is kind of what, you would see. And I have my course at Valencia and even at the high school set up in Canvas. So it's an easy shell for me to kind of get things going. And I'm going to kind of skip here to the modules so you can see the way that I have this structured and set up. And so there's like an orientation tab here with everything kind of set up for success. Then I have the project overview. So I'm going to give you a quick snapshot of basically what this semester looks like and what the end result is going to be. So as a freelance graphic designer, the students are the freelance designers, and they've been contracted to create a website, fledgling e-commerce website. And the industry, is nothing more than where they have to kind of figure out where the homepage is, the product page, the detail page, the shopping cart, the checkout page, the user. So all of these different milestones is kind of what they structure throughout the semester. Now, this is me teaching this at Valencia College. If I teach this at the high school, this is probably going to be over a span of a year versus teaching it at the college. It's, from August to December. So it's a shorter period of time because we have a lengthier time that we can work with. So from an educator standpoint, I don't know if you guys can maybe share with me if you want to unmute so I can have a pretty good gauge of what you teach specifically, or maybe what you want to learn about web design in specific. That way I can kind of target that in what I'm showing you. Is that okay? If I see there is Aaron, Kanaz, and Theodore, if you guys want to unmute and just kind of give me a quick 2 seconds of kind of what you teach and where you kind of want, or some questions maybe that you want to kind of touch on.
Okay, alphabetically, I could go first because I'm Aaron.
Go for it.
All right,
Okay.
Thank you. So I teach web design, some computer classes, graphic design, and digital photography. And I've taught those classes before, but I added in web page design this year. I started out with some similar things, some design pieces, and then we use code.org to kind of learn the basics of code. And now we're diving into Dreamweaver,
Perfect.
which I'm finding very challenging for the kids.
With the certification. Yes.
We haven't even gotten there yet, but.
Yeah, it's a tricky software, and we'll touch a little bit on it, but I think the websites or some of the information that I'm going to give you is going to be a little bit more helpful. And we'll touch on that particular. Thank you so much, Aaron.
Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon.
And also Theodore.
Yeah. So currently, I'm not actually teaching. I'm a educational specialist. My teachers, they work with technology education courses primarily. One of my duties is I'm the webmaster for my for CTE. So I want to find out better ways to build our web page and kind of make it more appealing and inviting.
Okay. All right. We can touch on that. Yes, for sure. Hi, Theodore.
Hi, Jenny. Okay, so around my corner, we do web development training with HTML, CSS, and we get up to JavaScript. But we are looking at including a Dreamweaver into our offerings, because we think that it is much easier to be able to edit websites when you use Dreamweaver instead of going to working on the codes directly with HTML and CSS.
And And
Yeah.
Dreamweaver is part of, so I'm gonna assume, but I don't want to say, you know, that you guys use, I'm assuming you use Certiport. And so I'm gonna show you this right here. Can you see my Certiport screen? Yes.
Oh, yes.
So when you go under the pathway here, I'm kind of happy that you brought up this because, you know, you have the different pathways, and one of them is the web design pathway. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, I have the Photoshop stuff. I am working on getting Dreamweaver and Animate this year to accomplish this particular certification, because you have different things that you can do and, you know, have all the certifications, which is important, which is an important part of, you know, the programs that we teach, but also being able to teach the fundamentals of really understanding where and how to put things into Dreamweaver is important. So for example, I'm kind of showing you the way that I have this these milestones set up for my information architecture class, but this is on the back end, right? So even like Canals, you're wanting to set up just a basic fundamental website, but you still kind of have to think through the things that are going to go in the website, right? So like understanding who is looking at the website, determining the content, using, you know, so although my work here is like really in depth, you can still break it down to the basic fundamentals of where things are going to go and how is it going to be used. And then, you know, then you have the other side of it, which is the Photoshop side of optimizing all the pictures that are going to go on the website so that it can, you know, really go quickly. Because sometimes, you know, we all go, every time I tell my students this, you know, like we go to a website and we don't, you know, things are not loading quickly, or they're not moving as fast as we wanted to do. And then you're out of there. You're like, man, this website is, you know, BS. I'm out. And then you go somewhere else and to another site that actually physically works and things are optimized and moving quickly. And it's an eye-opening experience for the students when they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't understand why that was happening. So really kind of determining what the end user is, they're determining the site content, what's going on the website, and maybe being able to test what's going on the website and make sure that it works. So for example, if we go back into the Dreamweaver information, your images have to be optimized for web, right? So those are things that we can kind of discuss through, and I'm gonna scroll all the way down here and get this. I want to show you the modules of going into this project. So basically what's information architecture, right? And all of this. And I don't know if I can possibly share my site with you, or I'm gonna actually do this. Let's do this instead. I'm gonna give you can you guys see this PDF that I'm showing here? Yeah, I brought it over on the screen. Just let me know if you could see this. I'm going to zoom out a little bit.
We can see it, Jenny. It looks great.
This is a client. This is like one of their first information. Can you see it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Just you can give me a thumbs up if yes. So this is a creative brief, right? And any project that you're starting, whether it be from a print project or a web project, we want to start with a client brief. So when you are creating, and that's going to be one part of, like, let's say, for example, your students were taking a certification in web design, they have to figure out what the creative brief is. It's part of it's in all the certifications. What do you do prior to building the website, right? Or what do you do prior, or there's some type of information that's needed. Then we have target audiences or target markets, right? Basically kind of figuring out who the client is, what that target market is. Then we tie that into also doing a worksheet, of different types of products and features. And all these are worksheets that, especially if I'm teaching it at the high school, this is going to be broken down over a week's type work, or maybe 2 weeks. The psychographic variables, the what types of lifestyle, fun seeking, family, the trends, the hobbies. So really kind of diving a little bit deeper on the back end. And then I have my students create personas. So even if we are doing a print project or a web project, sometimes, fortunately for us, over the last year, we opened up a graphic design agency within our program. So we have real clients that are coming in now, but prior to that, not everybody is privy to having real clients maybe come in. So if you have your class designing a website, they can create personas or maybe a business persona that helps them really identify the strategic goals of what that website should be or how it can be perceived. So basically trying to kind of figure out the who is going to be looking at this website. So it's a very specific target, right? And then we have a competitive analysis. So basically trying to figure out what's working for our competitors and how we can design this website now to make it better than our competitors. So it's a slew of different things that you're really teaching the students how to get to a really productive website and become productive web designers, and really figure out how to make it work. And then all of this is part of, you have the research that they have to do. I'll give you a example of a process flow here. So being able to, the task here is, at the end goal is to make the purchase, right? So where do we go? The products that you're seeing, once we get through all of this, and then you get to the purchasing part of this, how is this going to work for our persona number 1 or our persona number 2, right? Once we have this down and we kind of know who is the person, who are we designing for, what the flow should be, then we go to, creating those wireframes, right? So if you're using a software like Dreamweaver, or if you're using a, another HTML or CSS type coding, it's easy to really kind of navigate this with the wireframes. And I often use wireframes and grids. If you're familiar, if you teach graphic design, you set up grids on your page. This is something that you would basically, I kind of break this down as, I tell the kids, or if it's at the college or if it's at the I'd say this is like building a house, right? Or if you're living in an apartment, you know, everything needs to go in a certain area or certain space. The kitchen goes somewhere, the bathroom goes somewhere, you know, your living room goes somewhere, where your TV goes. That's kind of the mindset that you want to have when you're building wireframes, right? And then they have tons of different, like at this point, we're doing like 6 different wireframes for every single page. Then we go into a testing log phase where we kind of test the users and what you know, we're kind of wanting to test. So the results here, like for this particular user, is they're able to complete the task, you know, are they able to click on each tab, things like that. And then for like their final presentation for this type of work, right? Like this is the back end, so they have everything, their client brief, their target market, their personas, their competitive analysis, who they're competing against in order for this website to really function and work. And then a analysis summary, content inventory, and you know, everything that comes into the accumulation of the final project. So you could see here, this project ended up being over 105 pages, which leads into when we get into Certiport, or like the back end work. I am a strong believer, and if any of you do any type of testing in Certiport or Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, and all the Adobe software, I am a strong believer that if the students really understand the back end work of the software and really understand in the software, it's easier for them to pass the certification. So we probably spend about, you know, the first, I usually, like, school starts for me at the high school in August and early August, and the college starts at the end of August. We spend a good chunk of, you know, August till like before Thanksgiving, really hammering out the work and working through the software. And then I put them in the training for the certification. So basically, we do all the front end work, have a really strong understanding of what they're doing, and then be able to get into the software and work through it and do the practice exams to end up being certified in it. So that's kind of where, you know, my thought process is when we talk and really go through that period of graphic design. So I'm going to share with you, and maybe I can post it in the chat if I can find the chat, but there is a couple of resources here that I want to share with you. And I'm going to go to each of these websites. That is going to be a, let me see if I can post it in the website. So I posted a bunch of links in there, but let me go back into my thing here. So the first one that I want to go, and I know one of you said you use Code, I don't know if you use CodePen, but CodePen is a really cool website. It's free. You can build and test things, you can learn and discover, you can share different experiences on here, and it's super easy to really kind of identify some of, you know, the coding. It's very basic, fundamental coding. And then you have Balsamic, which is also another site that is, you know, building the wireframes and really creating really cooler websites. So it's because you see, life's too short for bad software or a bad website, right? So you can check this out. And then we have another one. I like this one because I also teach app design, for like the phones. So these give you, InVision gives you the opportunity to create a prototype website or a prototype app, and you can actually use it and just drop pictures in there and be able to test things and practice and look at the interface and really be able to have the students explore, the beginnings of becoming a web designer. Because especially if you're teaching at the high school level and the goal is really towards the certification process, this gives you a lot of leeway for them to do a lot of exploration on how to build a website and how to actually kind of generate it. Then there's Figma. I kind of wanted to touch a little bit on Figma because it's something that we kind of shifted to also for developing prototypes, and then also filling in with coding with HTML and CSS. But this is something that we kind of shifted to at the college level using Figma. And it's a really cool interactive side for brainstorming. So everything that I just kind of talked about, in the information architecture side, we kind of bring it in here into the brainstorming side of it, into the design portions of it. And it's really easy because you see how this right here has like layers. Your students are also used to layers if they've used Photoshop, or maybe they've used Illustrator or InDesign. They kind of used to layers, right? And this kind of breaks it down. Figma breaks it down into those layer formats where it's an easier tool to develop that site. And so there's a lot of links here that you guys can go to. You also have Sketchup, where you can easily kind of sketch up a website and kind of figure out things, which is really cool. It's sketch.com. And then you have cascading style sheets which is CSS and HTML, which most websites these days are developed using cascading style sheets and HTML. So that kind of brings me into really kind of, I know Kanaz said he wanted to actually build a website from scratch. Now, there's a couple ways that you can actually build a website from scratch. You can either go the longer way, which I've kind of been showing you, or there are a couple different, free options for like, different types. There's a couple of these websites that I showed you here, or even, are you in a school district, Kanaz? Yes?
Yes, yes, I am. Public
So
school.
your school district should have some type of protocol or thing where they might have some resources that you can actually pull, or some type of web hosting that you can use that you wouldn't have to pay to have a website done.
Right.
And then you can use these free resources that I put in the chat there to help develop it, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And let me see. I want to go back in here. All right, so that's kind of the overview that I wanted to cover on like the building an actual website and then giving you the easier resources for your students. Now, Now, I want to bring something in here because I don't know if you're able to ever demo something like this for your students. I'm sure you've probably done it before, but every time I do this with like some students, they're always in awe of when I show them this, because my picture here is in actually Adobe Photoshop. So when in Photoshop here, you notice I have it in RGB mode, which if you go up under mode and RGB is the web color format, CMYK is for print. So anything that you're actually putting on a website, any image, right, or any type of imagery, it has to be RGB, which is red, green, and blue. That's the web format. So right here, if I were to go and let's say, I want to do a save for web, okay? And it brings this box up here for me, and you'll see sometimes, we have to kind of translate English, or not translate English, define a word for our students because they might not know what the word optimize means, right? So you have the original image. I always show them this. You have the optimized image, and what optimize means is how much seconds it's going to take to load on that website. So we want to optimize your pictures. So if you're building a website and there's pictures that are going to go on this website, we're going to optimize the imagery for the web, which usually it's 72 DPI, right? DPI is dots per inch, so that's the pixels per inch that are on that image. But I always like to go to either the 2 or the 4 here. The 4 takes you and shows you, and the kids, I mean, this is like a huge aha, oh my goodness, I didn't know that this was a thing, right? Because you know how our students are always on their phones, they're always on their computers, they're always doing something, but really understanding how things are put on the web and how things are created on their phones, then they have a better idea, and it also gets them interested in maybe doing this as a career, right? So right here, you'll see the original image is 4.48 megabytes, right? I don't think we even talk in megabytes anymore because everything's always gigabytes and terabytes. So it's 4.4. Then as a GIF, you see this bar here, it says GIF. It loads here because this is 7449K, which is kilobytes. It loads at 136 seconds. Now, if I click into this box and I come up right up in here and I change this to JPEG, right? That JPEG now reduce that file or optimize that file to 115 to 22 seconds, right? And then if I go to the 4th one, and let's say I want to do that as a PNG 8-bit, right? You'll see, or even if I go to the 24, that didn't really change that much. So I'm going to go back to the PNG, the regular PNGs. So PNGs, it's still a little bit high. So basically, I now have a decision here to make. And my decision here inside of Photoshop, and this is something that they do kind of ask, on the certification exams as well. So when they're able to apply it to a project, so let's say I'm doing an optimization project with them, they're able to remember this type of information when they see that question come up on like a certification exam, right? So this is where I was kind of talking about earlier that I do like the project-based work, that, teaching the project-based work, and instead of just putting them in something to do a practice test, this is actually teaching them how to use the software and realize, oh my God, this JPEG is only going to take 22 seconds to load, right? Let's save it as a JPEG. And then you can tell them what JPEG means, right? Joint photographic. You can give them the explanation for JPEGs. So those are some things that they really like to see and really like to understand, at least on my end that I've experienced so far. And that's a fun thing to do in Photoshop. Now in Illustrator, here's one of the things that I really enjoy also about Illustrator. Let me see if I can open up something a little bit differently for you here. Oh, I could maybe show you exactly, because I was doing a little tutorial here with my kids. But I can pull this over here. Let's do this. And I'll take off all of this. Just have the background there for now. So one of the cool things, you know, and this was not easy to do in Adobe Illustrator. So the difference between Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop, right? Adobe Illustrator is vector artwork. So it's vector, meaning it can be scaled to any size. That's why we build logos in Adobe Illustrator and not in Adobe Photoshop. So Photoshop is primarily raster-based work, which is pixel-based images. So it optimizes easy for web. In the past few years here, Adobe has really come full circle with really incorporating all of the web aspects into Illustrator and InDesign. And so, for example, I can easily export this the same way if I come here to File, Export, and Save for Web, and be able to do the same things that I just did in Photoshop. Now, years ago, you know, that wasn't really an option. And everything that I built in Illustrator, I had to take it and optimize it in Photoshop in order to be able to put it on the web. So for the past few years, I mean, you know, it's just been such an easier feat to work inside of Illustrator, because a lot of the things that we do for print media and for publications and for billboards and for buses, you know, like those big car wraps and buses, how can we take some of that artwork and optimize it easy for web? And that wasn't always easy to do in Illustrator. So now we have a way to do that. So that's a really cool thing. Then if I take you into InDesign, right? InDesign, I have a couple of, let me see if I have any examples here. Don't think I have. Any work that I downloaded. Well, let's just create something new really quickly here. So I'm going to create something for print, and I'm going to just create maybe like a 4x6, like a little booklet or something, right? And we're going to give it a couple pages and change this. I'm going to hit create. So this is now, let's say we created this little booklet here in InDesign, right? I'm going to give it a back page as well. So we have 4 pages in InDesign, right? And I'm just going to quickly create, you know, a little headline here, you know, maybe give it some color so you can see some color on there. And go back to the first page. give it some color. So I'm gonna just add some color here so you can kind of see what I am doing. Oops. Okay. All right. So we have a 4-page booklet, for example. Right. And I'm just going to save this really quickly on my desktop and just put test. Right. And so a couple things that we can do here is I can add, and this is also fairly within the last few years that they've done some really cool things like this. So hypothetically, you can create an interface for a website, so let's say I wanted to create this little little ball here, right? And one of the cool things about InDesign, and my students go crazy when I show them this. If you go under window and interactivity, there's a whole section here within InDesign, right? So let's say you bring in some pictures from Photoshop and you bring in some images from maybe some cool things that the kids created, like their logo or whatever it is from Illustrator. You can put all that into InDesign, right? And then create animations, bookmarks, buttons, publications, hyperlinks, liquid layout, the media. You can add video to it, objects, slates, page transitions, timing. And then we can go publish this online. So basically you can create an entire little booklet or an e-newsletter or even a web interface that simulates as an interface and then publish it online. So I'm going to just do a quick little animation here on this little bowl, and we're going to choose a little cool thing here. Maybe I'll do like spring left. Okay, now I want it to move. There we go. So I'm gonna do that for like 2 seconds, play for like 2. And then we're gonna play it and see how that works. So let me bring that in. So you'll see how it kind of works there. See how that works. So they can test it out if your students are doing something like this. And also they can come in. So let's say this little booklet has a hyperlink or something. Come back up to interactive. They can put in hyperlinks. They can do buttons. So just like you would in Dreamweaver, but in Dreamweaver, in order to add the buttons, they also have to add the coding, right, into Dreamweaver to add that, attribute. So you would call it an attribute in Dreamweaver. They draw the little button in Dreamweaver, and then, or you create the button in Photoshop and then take it into Dreamweaver to rebuild a website. InDesign, you can create everything and all your pages in here, and also create buttons and hyperlinks and all these different things. So it's a little bit easier to maneuver, but you're really teaching the kids how to use Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, and then they can still go into Dreamweaver as well. And all of which you need for your certifications, right? So it just gets them excited that they have all these different options to choose from. And then, if this is something that they get excited about, it's something that potentially that they can do as a career. So here, I'm just going to do this, and then I'm going to go to File. So let me just save it real quick. And I'm going to go to, where is my Publish Online? Publish Online. And then when you get the Publish Online button, it kind of looks like this. So we can do it as a single export, or we can do it as a spread. I'm just gonna leave it as test. Like right now, some of my senior classes are designing booklets. So they are publishing these booklets with animation, but they had to do research of 3 different art styles that pertains to design. And so they're creating this 10-page booklet with animations and with hyperlinks. So once it publishes online, give it a second here, it would then show up like this, and then we can view it. Let's see if it's loading. Yeah, there it is. So see how it's loading onto the web, straight onto the website. And because you already have access to InDesign, it just loads it for you, and any content that you have there, it loads. So there's a lot of different things that I kind of shared with you guys today. Feel free to, shoot me an email if you would like more information or just some tips and tricks and, whatever it was that you kind of want to do, because there's a lot of resources out there, and you can see how passionate I am about this, through the whole Adobe suite, into the certifications, and into all the other free resources that your students can become amazing designers. Thank you guys so much. Any questions? No questions?
Erin, go ahead. Yeah, here we can unmute you. I think you're on mute.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I have the kids for 13 weeks. So we do trimesters, so I have them for a very short amount of time, and then off they go to another elective. So I'm just trying to figure out how I can jam all this into such a short amount of time when I have them, 1 hour a day. So I think I was trying to do more than I can do, and I think I need to scale everything down, and maybe, like you said, kind of go through that whole process and maybe just create one website for the whole semester as opposed to 3 websites, which was my goal.
Right. And I feel sometimes, because I had that same issue as well when I first started transitioning, teaching from the college level to the high school, and really being able to take one project and break it down, and being able for them to understand it and grasp the information and being able to apply it, that made them more successful. So I think if you take that approach, it'll be best, definitely. And you will find that the project is more successful, and then they'll be able to pass whatever certs that you're giving them in that time, because that also is time consuming, Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and I think we're planning to switch to
And then you're definitely welcome to reach out to me.
Yeah, I hope we switch back to semesters soon, which would give me 20 weeks, which I think is a lot better length of time in order to create something.
Right.
Jenny, do you want to drop your contact information
Here's
into
my
the chat?
email.
Oh, you're way ahead of me. Look at you.
Yeah, I just put my email in there. So it's jenny.mohes@osceolaschools.net. Or I have my Valencia at valenciacollege.edu. Any one of those you can get me, and I can send you more resources as needed.
Jenny, thank you
Because I
so
have
much.
tons of cool ideas and projects, and yeah. I'm gonna stop sharing, Hannah.
No, no, please. We would have you for as long as we can get you if we could. I just wanted to say thank you and see if we had any final questions from those attending, or if there's any other thoughts. All right, I think that's pretty much it. So it looks like everyone's, I'm sure, wrapping up since we're close to the top of the hour. You're welcome to drop from here if you wanted to go back into the main room, see if there's any other sessions that are still going on. You're welcome to do that as well. But thank you so much, Jenny, for sharing with us. And thank you everyone for being here with us today. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.